40 minutes later, an imperious ring of the doorbell announces the
Ooh.
arrival. She's imperious, yeah. Announces the arrival of Aunt Primrose, or as she is more correctly addressed, Mrs. Primrose Patterson, née Wintermint, the sister of Rory's father. Rory leaps up as you open the door for Aunt Primrose. She strides into the middle of the room in her rather smart-looking long dark green jacket with brass buttons and dark green skirt, and a broad hat with flowers on it. Aunt Primrose is a tall woman who gives the impression of taking up thrice as much space as she rightly ought to. Cue Aunt Primrose.
God, you have built this up so much. I'm scared now. But I will do the best that I can as a relatively small town Midwestern girl. Hello, Rory!
She barks cheerfully, handing you her parasol and hat.
Good day, Cotswold. You're looking well. Better than Rory, at any rate, whom I see you have managed to drag out of bed before nightfall. Well done.
She casts a critical eye up and down Rory.
You look less foolish than usual. I assume that's your doing.
She says, looking at you. You give her the most imperceptible of nods.
Well, well, well. You look somewhat presentable.
Now I say.
Rory begins, but Aunt Primrose... Her name is Primrose now, apparently.
Primrose. My name Primrose. My good aunt.
Aunt Primrose hushes him with a wave of her hand as she eases herself into a chair. That's her theme music.
You're looking very well, Aunt Primrose,
Rory says.
And what is this?
She says, ignoring him.
What sort of trash are you filling your mind with?
She leans down and plucks down a slender, garishly illustrated novel from off a shelf.
It's a very well-regarded piece of literature. Perhaps the best-selling series there is right now,
Rory says.
Although she knows better, by Miss Fifi Buttercup, the 6th volume in How Wicked Was the Earl series.
Reads Aunt Primrose, holding her lorgnette to her eyes.
Shockingly bodice-ripping. Cotswold, what do you think of Rory's taste in literature?
I like the covering for your friend's sort of answer. I like the first one.
Yeah.
Actually, madam, that novel is mine, not Mr. Wintermint's. I find the work of Fifi Buttercup most illuminating.
That name, though. Fifi Buttercup. That's so silly. Let me clear my throat a little. Do you now?
Aunt Primrose
That may have... Sorry, I was just going to say, that may have piqued the audio.
Okay, I'm trying to make it bigger.
No, that's fine. It's just...
That was kind of an exclamation anyways. There's 3 words.
Aunt Primrose's eyes narrow, and she shakes her head, tossing the book aside.
I must say, I had the impression that you had more sense than that. These stories of young men and women cavorting around in hedge mazes and sneaking in and out of bedrooms in the dead of night are what I would call tawdry. I did not expect a taste for the tawdry from you, Cotswold.
That's going great.
Okay, I think I just spit all over my monitor, but that's probably okay. That's a side effect I'm willing to accept.
Just get a tissue afterwards.
Just kind of rub it down.
I will return it to the circulating library at the earliest opportunity, you say.
See that you do.
When the expression pearl clutching was invented, it was invented for her
Yes.
she says.
And see that you do not taint Rory with your ill-advised literary taste.
Rory stretches and smiles at Aunt Primrose.
Well now, Auntie, I suppose you look pretty foolish right about now. No, my taste in literature tends towards the complex, not this sort of paltry time-waster.
Speaking of books,
Aunt Primrose says.
where's the book I loaned you? What did you think of it? Did it stimulate that so-called brain of yours.
Rory steeples his hands and assumes a thoughtful expression.
I believe you are referring to Releasing the Hidden Potential of Your Hitherto Unawakened Mind in 12 Easy Steps by Professor Clarence Q. Hickory, are you not? I have it for you just here.
He hands her the book with a flourish.
Wonderful book. Excellent binding.
Always what you want recommended.
Exactly. Yes, I know bloody well what book I loaned you.
Snaps Aunt Primrose, drumming her fingers on the table.
I don't know if the mic's going to pick this up, but I'll drum my fingers.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Let me make it quite plain. I ask you to read this tome, because although you have little to no intellectual merits, you have in the past demonstrated a certain honesty in your evaluations, however inarticulately expressed. This Professor Hickory approached me several weeks ago bearing a copy of this book of his and wanted to know if he could address the Ladies' Intellectual Society, of which you know I am chairwoman. But I want another opinion, and you, poor sap, was the only person I could think of to ask at a moment's notice.
And it was my pleasure to offer my assistance,
says Rory.
Did you read it?
Well, naturally I read it.
Rory says.
And what did you make of his conclusions? Do they seem sound to you?
Ah, yes.
Says Rory.
Hmm.
You seem very pensive.
Aunt Primrose pursues.
It must have gotten you a lot of food for thought.
Indeed.
I cannot but hear a certain evasive quality in your responses.
Aunt Primrose says.
You didn't read it at all, did you?
Oh, the jig is up, isn't it?
Rory says.
No, not a lick. Well, I flipped through it a few times, but more to goggle at how many words were in it than to peruse its contents.
Aunt Primrose throws up her hands.
Well,
She says.
what more did I expect? I only wanted a second opinion on this Professor Hickory fellow, and whether he seems to be a good candidate to invite for a talk, but you have been no help whatsoever. Oh, buck up, young egg. You needn't weep. Auntie Primrose isn't going to scold you. Didn't I watch over you when you were a mere tadpole and shake a rattle at you hundreds of times?
You did.
There now, I'll simply know better than to ask you to accomplish intellectual tasks, that's all.
Rory looks rather unhappy, and he shakes his head slowly and mournfully at you.
Where's dinner?
Cries Aunt Primrose.
I'm famished. All I had today to eat was a buttered roll at the train station. I think you could offer her a glass of wine. That might placate her some.
Sure. Offer Aunt Primrose a glass of wine as she sits down. May I tempt you with a glass of...
Oh, yes!
She says.
Certainly, I'll have the Chateau de something or other that you gave me last time I was here. And give me full measure.
Very good, madam. An excellent selection. You pour her a generous drink, and then prepare to bring out dinner. Rory and Aunt Primrose arrange themselves at Rory's small table.
Now, tell me, Aunt Primrose.
Rory says.
Not that I do not relish the pleasure of your company with all familial duty and so forth, but why the sudden trip to London?
I have some things to ask you, and I wanted to ask to your face.
She says.
I was like, Ben? Ben? Like, did you die again?
Ah, that's lucky, as I have something I want to ask you as well.
Rory says.
By way of background information, I don't suppose you've ever heard of the horse Surefire, which ran in the third race a few days ago?
What are you talking about? None of your nonsense until after dinner. Oh, thank you, Cotswold. Just in time.
You bring out the food, but you are very much aware of how tense Rory is. As you serve Aunt Primrose, and then Rory, you...
I feel like the hand on the shoulder is a little too forward.
Oh, I kind of liked.
Well, I think it's Emily's turn, isn't it?
Okay, well, go for it, go for it.
Is that your choice?
Make a move. Make a move.
I don't know. I like little gestures of comfort. It's maybe not the best place for it since your aunt's right there, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Anyways,
we'll see what happens.
I'm scared. I don't want to yell at you. Oh no. Okay.
Put your hand on
Just
Rory's
click it.
shoulder to comfort him.
I mean, I'm assuming it's not just staying there. It's just like, you know.
Discreetly.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Discreetly, as Aunt Primrose fusses with her napkin, you rest your hand for a moment on Rory's shoulder. Rory quickly reaches up to touch your hand, acknowledging you.
Aww. That was sweet.
Now it's Callie's turn.
Ooh, I like the first two. I don't know, charged could mean good or charged could be bad. Why don't we just say the first one, because that sounds like probably the best.
Although we have worked together for years, this is the first time we have ever had that kind of contact. It was the last thing you expected to do, especially with Aunt Primrose sitting right there, but it happened. There are bounds, and you may well have overstepped one. Certainly your fellow servants at the Cadbury Club for those who serve would frown at that sort of behavior. And yet... Aunt Primrose looks up, and you clear your throat.
Your throat clearing noise sounds like you're evil laughing while choking.
It just happened.
Ah.
And step away.
Everything quite all right on that side of the table?
She asks. Yes, of course. Bon appetit, madame,
Ah, roast beef
Aunt Primrose says.
with haricot vert. Nice, hearty fare. Well, let's see if it's any good.
Rory leans forward, holding his breath. Aunt, Aunt Primrose makes approving noises as she chews.
Very good indeed. Well, season 2. I shall enjoy this immensely.
And she leans back and drains her glass of wine.
Glug, 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 glug.
Rory nearly laughs out loud from relief.
Enjoy, Aunt Primrose. Enjoy.
Oh, we done good.
An hour later, Rory and Aunt Primrose are sitting on the sofa with a bit of port. It is beginning to grow dark, and the wind is picking up. Rory clears his throat.
Aunt Primrose, I have a matter of some import to ask. A bit earlier, I may have mentioned this horse, Surefire, who ran in the third race.
Aunt Primrose ignores Rory and looks to you.
I'll just take the dessert here on the sofa.
She says. You offer Aunt Primrose a generous helping of the port-poached pear tart, a dollop of raspberry-streaked creme fraiche adorning it. Aunt Primrose takes a taste and then another. Her eyes roll back a bit.
It's the spot.
She declares with gusto, and then continues to devour the tart.
Devour. I like that.
Aunt Primrose seems in a hearty mood, and over the next hour or so, she chats amiably with Rory, cheerfully reminiscing about times they spent together when Rory was young, and trading anecdotes about mutual acquaintances. Her cheeks a bit flushed from the port, she turns to include you in the conversation.
Cotswold,
She says.
we've known each other for many years. You've spent a good deal of time on my estate. Like to think that you have had the opportunity to see me in my many moods.
You nod to acknowledge this truth.
I'm doing a little bit of a drunk voice.
I noticed. It's good.
Okay, I was like, should I keep doing this or is it hard to understand? And I have always thought of you as someone with refinement, a well-read sort who is able to solve problems with finesse and a sense of grace. Well, Unfortunately, I have some problems.
Tell me more.
Well, it's a naughty problem. It's a problem of young, untamed hearts.
Ah, I see. Love is like a smoke and is mad with the fume of sighs,
That's a good one.
Rory says.
One of your own.
No, sir, that's William Shakespeare,
That's the sort of poetic incision that I'm talking about.
says Aunt Primrose firmly.
Someone who has read the great love stories and can apply them for practical purposes.
Tell me the particulars, you say.
Well, Cotswold, let me explain. You know, of course, my young and tender-hearted niece, Mopsy?
Of course you do. You think about the young woman who you have known since she was 15, an energetic, loud, and emotionally voluble girl who saw you as a trusted friend and advisor from the moment she met you. Although you haven't seen her in a little while, you remember Mopsy as...
I like the friendly-sounding one.
I don't know which of these sounds friendly. I have no idea.
I would say particularly not the first one. Wait, is it my turn?
There's a problem in this taking turns scenario, I think.
Well, now I got stuff to keep track of. Oh, let's see.
I was kind of thinking the second one.
Yeah, I don't want to be mean.
Yeah, I mean, especially since it specifically says, like, she sees you as a trusted friend and advisor. It's like...
Yeah.
A charming...
Okay. Yeah.
A charming and clever young woman with whom I have enjoyed spending time. Mopsy. Dear Mopsy, Rory and she engage in the occasional letter, and she never fails to include a very long postscript to you, written in an elaborate script with flourishes, hearts, and curlicues adorning each letter. Her close relations fear that her spontaneous nature is bound to get her into trouble one of these days. It seems that time may have come.
Well,
Says Aunt Primrose.
the problem is this. Young Mopsy has become involved in an ill-advised love affair. She has become enamored of a local ne'er-do-well. I could say ne'er-do-well, right? I was saying it because it was like that in an episode of a cartoon that was silly, Fairly Odd Parents. She has become enamored of a local ne'er-do-well by the name of Figaro Fairfield, and he is completely unsuitable.
Rory goggles at the news.
Did you say Figaro Fairfield?
I did. Do you know him?
Of course I know Figs.
Cries Rory.
We were at school together. Haven't seen Figs in years. Whatever is he doing now? He was nice and all that, but, not what you'd call strong of mind.
I will have more to say to you on the subject of ill-advised romances in a moment. Now I'm speaking to Cotswold.
She turns back to you.
This Figs is what is called a bohemian artist. He lives in a garret atop a thrift shop. He produces completely rubbish art that he tries to pawn off on unsuspecting tourists.
That's not quite fair.
Rory interjects.
The man has no talent, no prospects, and no money. Therefore, Mopsy is completely head over heels. The more so because her parents have strictly forbidden them from seeing one another. And so they've sent her to my estate that she may recover from her unfortunate affection. But so far she has not recovered. In fact, I have reason to believe that she has been attempting to sneak off of my property and elope with this man in the dead of night. And so I ask you, Cotswold, what am I to do? How can I ensure that a young, resourceful woman will be unable to sneak off with her would-be lover on my watch?
I'm just going to read these because they're dramatic. Perhaps appoint some guards? Some trustworthy people who can patrol about the property, who will alert you if she does something rash? Or, I know that you have an enviable collection of hunting dogs, perhaps allowing a few of them to roam about at night? They would let the household know at once if Mopsy were trying to sneak out. Or, this isn't a case for increased security at all. Instead, simply tell her you trust her.
I don't know if we want to give her good advice or if we want to, I don't know, because I don't want to give her the advice that would actually work, I feel like, so I don't want to set Mopsy in a bad situation, and I kind of really don't care what Auntie says about, no prospects, no money.
Yeah. I just feel like just saying the third one will make Aunt Primrose mad at us, but...
Yeah, that's true. You can try the dogs.
My first instinct was the second one, then.
Let's do it.
Sick the dogs on her.
But the dogs might like her, so everything might turn out okay.
Aunt Primrose snaps her fingers.
Of course, I knew you'd think of it. She won't be able to sweet talk a dog, and their barking would wake us all up, and then we'd catch her in the act. I think it'll work. Yes, I like it. Thank you, Cock. Wait, the quotes end.
Okay,
but
I guess there's a bug there.
Typo.
Oopsie. Thank you, Cotswold. I may ask you for more help, of course, when you get there, but this is a good start.
Of course, you say, and begin to clear the port glasses.
Did you say when you get there?
Rory asks.
Whatever are you talking about?
Oh, didn't I say? You are coming to my estate for several days, arriving this weekend.
Aunt Primrose folds her arms and pushes her chin out, as if daring Rory to gainsay her words.
No.
Rory holds up his hands.
You have this all wrong.
I do not. You will be coming to my birthday celebration this weekend, so that I can have the pleasure of seeing you together with your new fiancée, Miss Frankincense Signet. I have taken the liberty of inviting her as well, that I may have the dubious pleasure of seeing you two together. Now, when precisely were you thinking of telling me? I had to hear that you became engaged from her mother, who I just met the other day.
What do you do upon hearing that Rory has become engaged?
Bite my lower lip ever so slightly.
Okay. Also, I love her name. Signet.
Miss Frankincense Signet.
Yeah. Rory turns to you, looking bewildered and exhausted. He meets your eye for a moment, and then he looks down.
I suppose, in some sense, I did become engaged. Did I? It all happened so fast the other day. Frankincense and I met up purely by chance at a bistro, and we got to talking, and she brought up the subject of love. And I said love seemed like a perfectly nice thing, and then she said that I was quite a sweet talker, and then I said that she was such a kidder, and then she looked at me for a very long time. And she said she knew that I had been in love with her for such a long time, and that finally she would relent and agree to take my hand in marriage, as it were, and I didn't know quite what to say, so I said I would order some champagne, and then she said, yes, champagne, just the thing to toast our mutual alliance, and then she kissed me, and everyone applauded. But we haven't made a formal announcement, so I'm engaged now, am I?
What are you feeling right now?
Oh gosh, this is intense. This is very intense.
We just put our hand on his shoulder.
I know. So, I'm kind of leaning towards the second one.
I feel an odd, wistful feeling of pain or some strange jealousy at the thought of Rory's engagement.
Yeah, I think that's good.
It sounds like, oh.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would verbalize that.
A twinge of something halfway between vertigo and melancholy. You can see out of the corner of your eye that Rory is gazing at you. Do you look up and meet his gaze?
I don't know. Will we look up and be really sad looking? I don't know if I want him to see us sad, but I guess we should look up at least quickly. I mean,
Unfortunately, you don't have the option to like time it.
Just kind of a quick one, just a little glance.
I look up and say, "Notice me, Rory Senpai."
Yeah, let's look up. Why not?
The main character is very well educated and happens to know Japanese.
Of course.
As you look up, Rory looks down uncertainly, then he flicks his eyes back to you. Do you continue to hold Rory's gaze? Do you look down, or do you turn towards Aunt Primrose?
I think this was what Callie was getting towards. I looked down in a flurry of emotion.
I don't want to look at Aunt Primrose right now.
I look toward Aunt Primrose lovingly.
Yeah, everyone's just like loving gazes at everyone. Like everyone just keeps looking at each other like, ooh, ooh.
I look towards Aunt Primrose in a flurry of emotion.
Why, Jam? What are you doing?
Aunt Primrose.
Don't give me those goo-goo eyes.
And then I realized I'm in love with Aunt Primrose.
No! That's the bad ending.
Yeah.
Bad
ending.
Love with Aunt Primrose.
Okay, I look down in a flurry of emotion.
Yes.
Your cheeks flush, and 1,000 things you might say rush through your mind. You reject every one of them. Aunt Primrose is talking, but you cannot hear her. So overwhelmed are you by this torrent of emotion.
Pay attention, you silly thing.
Aunt Primrose says to Rory.
I'm trying to pay you a compliment, but you're ruining it by sighing and puffing as if you were to blow up a party balloon.
She leans forward and jabs one finger at Rory.
In my opinion,
Says Aunt Primrose.
you've done the family proud, whereas your cousin Mopsy attempts to ally herself with a starving artist. You have found yourself affianced to a signet, a family who I understand has untold wealth and prosperity. Although I am a touch miffed that you neglected to inform me or ask my advice. Cotswold, you used to work for the Signets before coming to work for Rory, didn't you? What did you make of frankincense? The second one's pretty intense. Oh God, no.
So it's number 4.
Oh, shoot. Do we think reasonably pleasant, or do we want to add some extra drama that we had this affair? I kind of like the drama. Let's go with 2. Mess it up.
Frankincense and I had a torrid and passionate affair, but I cannot say that.
Scandalous.
Now I want to go after Aunt Primrose as well.
No!
No!
Miss Signet and I, we had a close working relationship, you say. But even as you utter the mild statement, your memory is filled with thoughts that you are forced to push away here. You try very hard not to think about the ivy-strewn gazebo. It was a frosty winter twilight, but you and Frankincense were warm in each other's embrace, and the forbidden...
You seem rather pensive at the mention of frankincense.
Aunt Primrose cries.
I can see that I will need to judge it for myself, as you are little to no help.
Aunt Primrose stands at last and smooths her skirt briskly.
So, it's settled then. You'll come for a nice visit, and Cotswold will help me figure out how to keep Mopsy away from her beau. And then I can judge the... And then I can be the judge of whether frankincense and you are a match that meets my approval. Then, for a special treat, if you please me, which I doubt you will, you can come into the village and watch the home team win dozens of blue ribbons at the Harvest Festival.
No,
No, what was it that you were to ask me about the horse surefire in the third race, if I remember rightly?
I simply wondered. Honestly, I think breaking in might be kind of rude or something. I'd just go with one, probably.
Let Rory finish.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to fight his own battles.
Yeah, he'll probably make a complete mess of it, but if you could see it clear to loan me, that is, if possible, a bit of the readies to pay the piper, and tide me over until next month,
Rory says.
I'd be ever so grateful.
Aunt Primrose laughs heartily.
Oh, you!
She says, playfully batting at Rory's hand.
Well, how could I say no when you've given me such a lovely evening? You outdid yourself tonight, by which I mean that you have exceeded the extraordinarily low expectations that I had for my entertainment here.
Glad to oblige,
Rory says.
Yes, I'll send you the money you so foolishly squandered, and give you a bit of a walking around money in the meanwhile.
She gets a cagey look in her eyes.
But you'll still come over this weekend. You wouldn't take money from my hand and then reject me in my time of need.
Never,
Rory says, although you can see that the thought had clearly crossed his mind.
Good.
She says.
I expect you with all promptness. Will you fix the problem with Mopsy and her most unwelcome suitor?
Between me and Cotswold, consider your problem solved.
And will you come with Auntie when we go hunting without complaint to lend a hand at the village harvest festival?
All this we swear,
Rory says.
I will see you tomorrow.
She says.
And may I remind you that I will be celebrating my birthday. I will have several respectable guests there, and you may wish to put more thought into the gift you bring than the one you offered last year.
And with that, Aunt Primrose departs, waving over her shoulder. Rory waves and closes the door firmly after her. There's a moment of silence, and you turn to see Rory looking at you with a quizzical expression on his face.
I had forgotten that you had worked for the Frankincenses family,
He says.
Sorry I didn't mention all this before.
You flush a bit and try to gauge Rory's expression, but it is inscrutable.
I suppose it would all just be one big happy family if this whole marriage thing works out. That'll be pleasant for you, I suppose, since you two were close.
I gotta go with answer 3.
Yes, we were close. Close indeed. Rory opens and closes his mouth 6 or 7 times, goes and gets a glass of water, drinks it down, and then returns to you.
Well, good gravy. You don't mean to say...
I do, but as you know, I have not seen frankincense in quite a few years.
And so this is what you meant when I first took you on, about becoming emotionally involved with your employer.
Oh yeah, we did use that.
Yeah.
She and I spent a great deal of time in close proximity, you confess. But that is long past.
And yet the spark may remain. This is most unprecedented, Cotswold. You place me in what the great writers would call a love triangle, and it is most provoking to be in said triangle with one's gentleman servant. This is an affair of positively Shakespearean dimensions.
I hope not, sir.
Servants have been fired for less.
I understand.
Although this was in the past, who's to say whether sparks remain, just waiting to be kindled into a bonfire of passion and all those things in the romance novels?
Rory picks up and brandishes a copy of Although She Knew Better by Miss Fifi Buttercup.
You see what I mean?
I would hardly compare our situation to that of the situation in Although She Knew Better. Rory paces back and forth and then snaps his fingers.
If only I were certain about whether I even wanted to be wed to frankincense in the first place. Well, there it is. When person A loves person B, but C and B also have past, that's the perfect opportunity to test the strength of the relationship between A and B. Indeed, it could even strengthen the bond between A and C if it turns out that A and B are not what you'd call a match. In short, the sticky situation could be just the thing I need to figure out if frankincense and I are soulmates, if you will.
I don't think...
There we are. All solved. That's a relief. You'll come along with me, of course, and make a point of talking to frankincense in a tete-a-tete. Then we'll know for sure. And Aunt Primrose could hardly be upset at me for breaking off the engagement if she's fallen for you. She may be furious at you, but hardly at me. Good night, Cotswold. Pleasant dreams.
That's the end of the chapter.
Yay!
Good job.
Well, congratulations. You have created a situation.
Yay!
Rory still likes us. I wasn't sure. So yeah, we've initiated 2 romance options already, I'm pretty sure.
Cool!
And there's only 2 more romance options left, so, you know, we're already 50-50. No, you haven't met the other 2.
We'll have to see. Next time!